Welcome back, everybody, to Fish Scales and Shrimp Tails. I'm going to try something a little different this time. I'm going to voice over instead of try to monologue while I'm actually doing the work. And hopefully this will make the video a little bit shorter than they have been in the past. So I'm just showing you right now, what you're looking at on the screen is the eventual teardown of what was left of the Sunkissed cherry shrimp tank after I moved them into their new home. I'd just been tossing random plants and bits and pieces in this tank as the weeks went by for me to use at a later date, or hoping that it would come back. Really, there wasn't very much salvageable out of here. I took the wood out, that big log that was in the center, and as soon as I did, you could just smell how awful that wood and how rotten it had gotten. So most of this wasn't usable. I kind of let the string algae take over, so unfortunately there's that. This tank that we're building today is going to be very sparsely planted as a result. I've spun up 3 other tanks recently, and I've kind of run out of extra stuff to put in the aquarium. So we're going to do a very lightly planted tank today, and we're going to just let it mature over the next month or so and keep replanting cuttings and that sort of thing, and see how we go. I did check this tank as I tore it down for any other kind of life, any left behind shrimp. At one point, I did think that maybe, just maybe, the shrimp had bred in here and I hadn't noticed. But that turns out that it was just a freeloader from the snowball shrimp tank when I put the Java moss in. So no real excitement after all. The shrimp had not in fact bred, and the the random shrimp I found got returned back to his home. So hopefully we have more luck in the next tank. So we did go ahead, take the hardscape out. I gave it a scrub down. This hardscape had been in there for a while without anything else from the tank, and had managed to develop a pretty good case of some string algae on it. So I just sort of took a little scrubby, lightly brushed everything down to try and discourage any of that from growing back, and we'll put it back in the tank, and hopefully I don't have this problem again. Me and string algae and Java moss, they all seem to go together. If I have Java moss, I have string algae, and if I have string algae, I have Java moss. Hopefully it doesn't continue that way. So we'll just continue to drain that tank down, keep checking in every now and then, looking for any kind of life, make sure we got everybody out, and then we'll move on to the setup. You guys are very familiar with the setup that I use, and that's the same thing that I'll be using in this tank. But we'll get this one drained down, pull all the plant life and anything else out of here that I could salvage. Some of the moss was okay. There were a couple of random plants that were okay, but not a great deal. Most of this just got scooped up. And what I usually do with this stuff, guys, if you guys, I mean, if you're doing water changes, I personally don't. But if you're doing water changes on any kind of regular basis, and you have a vegetable garden or you have house plants, you recycle that water. Use that for your house plants. Use that for your vegetable garden. There's lots of nutrients in that water itself that will help grow your plants. And especially if you're redoing a tank and you don't plan on saving any of it, take all this and recycle it into your vegetable garden the next year. Just grind it all in there. It's great for your vegetables. I am not reusing this because I'm getting away from the fluvial substrate. I'm convinced that's why I had some issues. I'm convinced that is why I didn't have any breeding. The shrimp always looked okay. They always behaved okay. I just didn't have any breeding action going on. And the little bit of breeding that I did get, for some reason, the shrimplets didn't seem to survive. I'm sorry, we didn't get shrimplets. We didn't get that far. The eggs, the shrimp kicked the eggs off after a very short period of time. So I'm not quite sure what the deal was there. But we're going to get away from it with a new substrate, and if we continue to have troubles, we'll diagnose it from there. So you guys know the deal. Plastic mesh bags off of Amazon. Fill them up about half full with dirt. Just enough that the bag will still lay flat. You don't want to fill them. Typically I use black mesh bags. I've run out. I'm just reusing what I have handy. Miracle-Gro potting, organic potting mix is what I use, just because I know that it has no added chemicals to it and it's safe for shrimp. Now, how long that's going to be that way, I don't know. Always check, guys. You can float off the organics if you really want to. I've never found a need. If you're going to do that, I would just suggest buying pond soil or aquatic soil. It's already been done for you. Fill your bags up halfway, and then we'll get them inside to the aquarium and lay them down flat. Like I said, I usually try to use the black ones just because they blend in with the tank rim and you don't see them as much, but we'll be careful here. So toss them down on the bottom of your tank. I usually recommend to people start with like a 20-gallon tank, guys. The smaller the volume of water, the harder it's going to be for you to keep that water parameter, the water parameters in that tank stable, and the harder it's going to be for you to keep fish, and you're going to get discouraged and you're going to quit the hobby the first time they get sick. Stick with a larger tank. I would suggest somewhere between the 20 to 55 gallon range would be good. 20-gallon longs are a nice tank. That's what this one is here. There's lots of room for planting. There's lots of room for schooling behavior. You are a little bit limited to the size of the fish that you can keep in a 20-gallon long, but for the most part, especially if this is your first aquarium or if it's a shrimp aquarium, 20 gallons is lots. You're not going to need much more than that. When you're done, on top of your dirt, throw in your lava rock. Just a thin layer, just enough to cover the bags, if that's what you've got. It gives you an anoxic anaerobic environment. It gives you an area for your beneficial bacteria to grow in, which is what keeps your tank clean. It's what processes your fish waste. So that's all good stuff to have going on. That's what you want to encourage. When you're done that, throw your sand on top. I generally suggest you double the amount of sand that you have for your dirt. So if you got an inch of dirt on the bottom, you want 2 inches of sand sitting on top of that. You may not need that much. I understand the reasoning behind that, and if you watch Father Fish, he'll tell you the reasoning behind that. It's a process, I don't know what it's called, but where the dirt will bubble up underneath of the sand to a certain level. I think the mesh bags probably prevent that from happening, but I think it's still a good rule of thumb to use. Why mess with the system that's already working? He's already done all the hard work and all the research, I guess is what we would call that. When it comes to the hardscaping, guys, it really is just personal preference. Do make whatever it is that you like. This is going to be your tank for quite some time, so set it up how you like it. I use rock piles now in my shrimp tanks. There does seem to be an indication from most shrimp keepers that having a rock pile in your tank does contribute to a higher shrimplet survival rate. I think that's because it gives the food and the mulm and the detritus a place to collect, where the little shrimplets will typically be released from their mother, so they have food there because they don't move a lot when they're first born. So that's the idea behind it. So that's why I've done this. I've also taken the Java moss and just kind of wrapped it around the bits of the branch that are coming up there. Hopefully that'll just sort of cascade down and build a big area where the shrimp can feed and breed and hatch their young out. I've never had a lot of success with Java moss. I always get infested with string algae, but we're going to give it a shot here again. I think I got all the string algae out of this moss, so hopefully I don't get infested with it again. We'll give this a shot and see. When it comes to planting, guys, what I was trying to demonstrate to you here, this is a top-down look of the aquarium before I filled it. What I was trying to demonstrate to you here is another way to take plant cuttings and get the most out of them. In the previous build, you saw me cut down stem plants to several nodes, like, took one long stem plant, cut it down into 3 pieces, planted 3 pieces, put them in the ground, and watched them grow. And they did. And I'll show you a video of that down the road, but the tank is growing in very well. Here, what I was trying to do was demonstrate to you another technique that I use, and I did a piss poor job at it, I'm sorry. The idea of what I'm trying to show you is sometimes you'll let your plants, your stem plants especially, grow very, very long, and you'll see when they get up to the top of the water, there are roots coming out of each leaf node. above ground, especially with something like, I think this is Rotala, Atra, or I don't remember. But stem plants, this is for stem plants, guys. What you can do, instead of even just cutting them down into 3 pieces, if you take that plant, and what I should have done here, lay it down on the gravel, and then poke the stem in the ground about every inch or so. Or, easier, take a little pebble, which is what I should have done here. Lay the plant down flat on the sand, and put a pebble at both ends, and then put a couple pebbles in the middle to hold it down. What will happen is roots will grow from the stem into the ground and root the whole stem down. And each leaf node that is exposed above the soil will then turn, you'll see it'll grow new leaves, and it will turn into a new stem plant from there. It's just another way to propagate them and get the most bang for your buck. Now, it takes a long time to grow in, like everything else. You're going to have to be patient doing it this way, but you will save yourself a couple of bucks along the way. And with this tank, because I've kind of run low on the stock of plants that I have, I've just been taking cuttings from other tanks and recycling plants that were in those tanks that were still in good condition as I rebuild them. I've kind of run low at this point. And because my intent with this tank is still slightly unsure, I'm not sure which species I'm going to go with. I don't know if I'm just going to do Blue Dreams, which is probably what I'm thinking, but I also have it in my head, I wouldn't mind just having a random guppy breeding, like just random, just let them breed at random and see what we get. Sometimes that can just be a lot of fun to watch. So I'm really not sure what I'm going to do, but I'm doing this tank as though I'm going to do another shrimp tank, which is probably what's going to happen. But because of the limited stock that I have, we're going to start it up real slow, and you'll get to see the progression, you know, what you can do with a really, really limited budget, which wasn't really the purpose of this, but nonetheless, you'll see how you can get just a few plants and very basic aquascaping materials, and you'll get a tank over time that really grows in and looks fantastic. I know this tank won't look great when I'm finished. I know you're going to look at this and go, ugh, what did he do? Trust me. Give it a month and a half when we revisit this tank, and it will look completely different than it does right now. And guys, don't forget, I keep saying this doesn't have to be an expensive hobby. These rocks, the larger rocks, I got like a 50-pound bag from a landscaping store for, I don't know, 20 bucks, 30 bucks, something stupid. I will never have to buy rock again. If I want to do rock piles from the next 8 tanks, I have more than enough rock to do it. And then the small rocks, believe it or not, and I know they don't quite blend in right now. I think they will over time, because the smaller rocks are a little shiny, and I didn't expect them to be when they were dry. They didn't have that look to it. I literally got a bag of rocks at the Dollar General. I guess they have it for decorative vases, but that's where those small stones are from. It cost me like $1.50 for a little, a little detail bag or whatever. They're not the best match for these stones, but guys, always look around. I mean, look, it's just rocks. It's just wood. It's just sand. It doesn't have to be expensive. And your pet stores make a killing off of this stuff. Go to your landscaping stores. Go to your hardware stores. Buy place sand. Buy pool sand. Buy blasting sand. Go to your landscapers and buy your rocks and your lava rock and your decorative stones. Hell, you might even find a chunk of wood floating around that they'll part with. It doesn't have to be an expensive hobby, and you can do it up cheap. We'll see what this tank looks like. We'll come back here after a month or so. I mean, what is there in here right now? Five-ish dwarf sage plants, a bunch of Rotala H-Raw cuttings that I jammed into the ground, stem side down. And at some point, I will plant up a couple of cuttings of water wisteria. Water wisteria or water sprite? Somebody's got to tell me what that stuff is down in the comments, because I'm not sure. It'll show at the end of the at the final of this recording. I'll show it. But I mean, there's almost no investment in plants or rocks in this tank, and I'll bet you a month or so from now you won't even recognize this tank. Now, I'll put a thing up here on the screen about the plant that I'm talking about. I think that's water sprite, not water wisteria, but I've seen it listed as both at different pet stores in my area. That stuff is great. It's a really fast grower, and it just sucks nutrients out of the water before they have a chance to create any kind of problems. So what we're looking at is the tank about an hour or so after I filled it and had an opportunity to settle. And clearly I put the water sprite in the tank and some almond leaves. I do that in every tank, guys. Man, I say guys a lot, don't I? That's frustrating. Sorry. I put almond leaves in all my tanks. I'm absolutely convinced of their antibacterial, antifungal properties of tannins in the water. I just think it's a great idea. It's also a natural food source for a lot of fish. The shrimp, the snails, the autocinclus will go on that. It's just an all-around good idea to have that in your tank. I know some people really dislike having tannins in their tank. That's okay. I mean, you know, a fish tank is for you to enjoy. So if you like that crystal clear pool water look, then that's what you go for. Grab yourself some activated charcoal, grab yourself some Purigen, put it up in your filters, and you'll have that crystal clear water in no time. I find tanks that have no tannins in them to be very, very bright, and the lighting is very, very harsh. I'm looking at my tanks right now as I talk, and the tank that I just set up, the one that you're looking at, looks so bright in comparison to my other tanks, and they're all at the same light level. The lights are all on the same amount. It's just diffused through the tannins, and it just has a much softer, nicer look to it, guys. So we'll see where this tank goes. I know we're probably getting tired of looking at rock piles, but I'm convinced it works. The tank is very, very sparsely planted, but I think this will be a good opportunity for me to show you what you can do with somewhat limited resources. The Java moss was pulled out of another tank. There really isn't that much of it. If you bought one container of Java moss from a pet store or online, that's probably about how much I've put in this tank, maybe even less. I didn't bother to glue it. I don't like the stains it leaves on the wood, and I find you can always see them if you know where to look. I've just wrapped it around the wood. There's no fish in here right now that are going to pull on this, so it's not going to come unwound. It's a sponge filter. There isn't any fast flow to push it off the wood. And in a few weeks to a month after that being wrapped around the wood, it will anchor itself to the wood anyhow, and you won't have to worry about it. And it's easier that way too, because I find if it does anchor itself to the wood and it gets a little bit of string algae, you run a toothbrush through it. If the string algae is too thick, it'll just simply peel the Java moss away from itself, and you'll just be left with the little bits that are stuck to the wood, and that doesn't usually seem to have string algae on it, and that seems to be how I'm getting rid of it in all of my other tanks. I just let it grow until it's attached itself to the wood good and solid, and I run a toothbrush through it, pretty harsh considering, and it just peels away all the Java moss that is affected with string algae and leaves behind just the little bits and pieces that anchored themselves to the wood. And then when that regrows, it seems like the string algae is gone. I've now done that in all four of my other tanks, and I might shouldn't say this beforehand, but I might have actually got rid of the string algae. So we'll revisit this tank again several times in the future so I can show you how it's growing in. I think there's like 6 sage plants, some Java moss, and a couple of cuttings of water wisteria that I took out of the Live Bears tank that you guys have already seen set up. By the way, guys, that Live Bears tank is doing so well right now. The plant growth is bonkers. The fish have settled in. I feel like the swordtails are holding on to their young longer than they should, but I've had that happen before. Sometimes they won't release the babies until they're ready. I think I saw one or two babies scurrying around on the bottom a couple of weeks ago or so, just after I put them in. I think one of the fish actually dropped their babies. Um, Sometimes they drop them before they're not ready, and of course, because there isn't a lot of cover in this tank, then they've gotten eaten. So it happens. We'll catch them on the next time. Hopefully, the tank will be more grown in at that point. Anyhow, guys, here we go again, guys. This has been fun. I really didn't expect much of a response on YouTube when I started doing this. Just a crazy old man talking to his fish in his basement. But this has been fun. More of you guys are tuning in. Hopefully, I've come a little ways in teaching you how to set up a successful aquarium and how to enjoy what you may already have or how to improve on it. Uh, if I've helped one of you, then I think that's great. MD Fish, Father Fish, Aquarium Co-op, Keeping Fish Simple, all these other channels are channels that help me get back into the job, into the hobby, help me find a way to enjoy it again after having been gone for so long in a very natural way. This is a lot more fun than messing with filters and chemicals and pumps, and oh my god, it was just, that's why I left. It just wasn't fun anymore. I really enjoy this, and I really enjoy talking to myself in the basement, pretending like I'm talking to you guys. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much the end of the video. I've got a little surprise for you here at the end. If you've been paying attention, you'll know where this comes from. You'll probably recognize it right away. A couple of small changes to it, but you'll recognize it. Anyways, guys, I got to work on that. Until next time, this has been a blast. I hope you've enjoyed the video. We'll talk again soon.